Look at using the skills that we reviewed yesterday to get us started on the on implementing the course services, the course JPA database, and what the client might look like. So we looked at yesterday on how to set up the middle tier, which you should already have set up. So I'm not going to go over that. What I'd like to talk about a little bit on what this middle tier might look like, right? Although, again, some of you have already implemented some of this. Let's take a look at this. So we had implemented a service for this yesterday. Let's see. Is this where we are? No, that's not it. Yeah, so in the lectures, we had created a Java server, right, which is the same exact Java server that we've been using for the last couple of weeks. Right, it's the same one. Also, it's mapped to the same remote. Right, so we're going to keep that. That still is going to be our server for the next couple of weeks. Let's see. So this is the Spring Boot server, and let's open it up with the Spring Boot. Let's see, do we have already up and running? Let's see, we have, all right, this is the other course. Let me stop that, and let me open up this one. CS5610, Summer 2, and we only have here the data model for the user, right? We have the user client. On the back end, we have the repository for only the user. We have the data model only for user, right? So let's work on creating the other data models that we need. At least we will need the courses and we'll need the modules. All right. So let's create a data model for that. All right. So this will be a course data model. And it will look as follows, right? We'll have a class, and we'll annotate it so that it's a JPA entity class, so that it maps to a table, right? So that's small. So let's see. We'll make this an entity. So entity, and we will import that from persistence. And we'll need a primary key for this. So this will be probably a private integer ID. We don't want to have to handle the life cycle of this primary key. So we'll tag it as an ID, and we'll ask the database to handle the life cycle of this field. So we'll say, hey database, you handle the life cycle, right? So instead of me having to compute this, we'll ask the database to follow a strategy to auto increment this for us. Okay. Then we had a couple other things here. We had also perhaps the title of the course. We probably had also a couple of dates. Let's keep it simple. We'll just keep the title. For this to be a proper Java bean, it needs all these to have setters and getters that go along with this, plus the default constructor, which is we already have it. But if you overload it with other constructors, you'll need to declare it yourself. I'm not going to overload it. I'm just going to keep the default constructor. I'm only going to declare the setters and getters. There it is. All right, so there it is. So this is the data model, plus any dates, any other counting how many seats are available for this particular course, any other things like that. Yes, you have a question? Oh, I just used a source and I said generate the setters and getters for you. You can also generate the constructors and things like that. Yep. All right, so we have the data model for this. If we restart this, it should create for us the table. Let's see, do we have it mapped to a database? We must have, right? It's mapped to database schema that we should have configured earlier. Probably is this one right here. So, let's see, which one must be Spring Boot, application, course manager. No, it must be, let's see, must be this one, no? So it must be this one. With the, yeah, 2018, very good. So the environment is pointing to this schema, WebDev 2018, summer 2018. So let's verify that we do have that database. Let's start up Workbench. Oh, that's not it. Workbench, I meant, not Word. Local instance, let's see. Yes, we do have it. We do have WebDev summer 2018. Okay. All right, so we have the database. But the database, right now, it only has the user table. If we restart our, let me close that. If we restart our server, okay, if we restart our server, which is this one, we started from the command line, run as a Java application. It should parse that data model, right, and create the table that goes along with it, right? That right now it only has an ID and a title. Right now, here's where it created a table. There it is. Although we can't look at it, we can't see it, right? So it's yeah, the Hibernate create table course ID with ID integer auto increment in the title, right? So we created that table. If we go to Workbench and we say to please refresh, hopefully we will now have the course table in there. Okay, we have the course table with the auto increment and whatnot. All right, so we have that. If we keep going, we need to create also a course repository. So let's create that. That's easy, right? That's based on what we had done for the user. So let's create one real quick. Let's create a new class here. This will be the course repository. Remember, this is not a class. This is an interface, right? We're going to extend an implementation of this interface. So this will be an interface, and this will extends. What was it? CRUD repository, right? That's a JPA class. I mean interface. But it needs to be configured. We need to tell it what is the what object are we actually storing. In this case, would be the course. The course data model we just created, right? So we'll import that. And also, it needs to know what the primary key is, and the key is just an integer, right? It needs to be the wrapper version of the primitive data type. Okay, it cannot be the primitive data type. All right, that's it. That's all we need for the course. And finally, we need a service so that we can expose our data model as a Restful API, right? So if we go to our services, we can expose that. We can say a new Java class, and we'll call this the course service. And this course service was going to implement a RESTful controller. Right, to do that, we just annotate it as such. Right, we just say at REST controller and then declare the various endpoints that we want. Right, and at a minimum, we want to be able to retrieve the list of all the courses currently in the database. So we'll want something like public, return to me a list of courses, and retrieve all the courses. Right, retrieve all courses. With no arguments, right? Well, let's import all the dependencies here. So we'll need list. We'll need the course will be the same data model we just created earlier. To be able to retrieve this, we'll need to load the CRUD repository we just created, right? So we'll be we'll call it I think we called it course repository. There, and declare it as the course repository repo. And we don't want to handle the life cycle of this object, right? So instead, we're going to ask the framework to instantiate it for us and inject it into our scope, right? So we're going to say that this is going to be auto-wired. And auto-wire is a very popular technique of implementing inversion of control, where we are delegating the infrastructure to instantiating these for us. All right, now that we have the course repository, we can just return whatever the course repository, let's see, course repository can retrieve the find all. We can use the find all, but find all retrieves an iterable, so we'll need to cast it to the list. So let's do that. We can hover over this and say change or cast it to list course. So it auto fixes our code. All right, excellent. So we have the data model. We have the schema that was created for us. We have the course repository to talk to a database in an object-oriented fashion. Yes?
When we make these new server-side files, course service,
Yeah.
course, do we commit and branch from our first repo we want?
Right. So you should always branch off of master, right? So you merge whatever the latest thing was approved, right, into master, and then from master you create a branch off of that, right?
So this wouldn't be a part of our React client repo, or would it?
It's the same repo for the server side, right? On the server side, we're using the same.
The Java server.
Yeah, this is the same exact Java server we used last week. It will keep using it for the next couple weeks, right? Up until we switch over when we introduce the mean stack. In the mean stack, we'll switch the server to Node.js. We'll switch the database to Mongo, and we'll switch the client side to Angular. Okay. Yeah, originally I had this grand idea of switching everything all around so that you could have a chance to do all the permutations of all clients, talking to all the permutations of servers, and the TAs said no, everybody's going to go nuts, and so I pulled back and said, okay, no, let's just two UI interface, two UI frameworks, which are I think these are the leading frameworks out there, Angular and React. On the server side, I chose Java since I think it's the one that most people already are familiar with. I think there are other courses that also use Java, so most people come here already knowing Java. I haven't been able to enforce the fact that I would rather folks come in here after taking databases, because in databases we see all this from scratch. We spend a whole lecture only on JPA and a whole lecture only on services. So here I'm kind of like assuming you know a little bit of this. But I haven't been able to enforce that. So I'm sorry if you're here and you haven't looked at services or JPA at all. But I think a lot of you have already either taken databases at the undergrad or the grad level. If you haven't, this is a great 25 words or less on our object relational mapping. Anyway, but if you're ever going to start databases, this is a great place to jump right in the middle of the action. All right, so excellent. So we have the services, and we are going to expose this. Right, we're going to expose this and say that I want to map this to the following get HTTP request. We're going to say get mapping, and I want to map it to /API/ course. This is a very common syntax in industry that we prepend our URLs with API, or REST is also a very common prepending of URLs, so that we distinguish retrieval of static HTML or static CSS or static JavaScript from the server, as opposed to these are data APIs, right? These are APIs that are meant to return data, right? Not static content. So a common naming convention is to distinguish them by prepending this, an agreed upon prefix. So API is a very common prefix. and then followed by the type of entity that you're accessing. In this particular case, we are retrieving information about courses. So course is an appropriate name of what it is that we want. It's a get, so presumably we are retrieving data, we're reading data. All right, excellent. So let's try it out. Let's restart the server. Let's stop and restart the server. No, I could have just typed restart. Restart, and as that comes up, we can try to hit our server and retrieve all the courses. So this would be localhost. The server is listening at 8080. Starts with API, follows with course. And right now, notice that it returns with an empty array because there are no courses in the database. Right? We never inserted anything in the database. The slides walk you through inserting a couple of courses. I only have a title. I don't have dates. So I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to edit it. So let's see. I'm just going to paste it here. How can I make this bigger? Okay. So I'm just going to insert it into my local database is web dev summer 2 2018, and I'll copy that and I'll paste it here. The table is course. I do not have a date created or modified. I just have title. So I'm just going to remove those two fields. And the data that I have is CS5610, and I have also 5200. And we'll just add one more and add here a CS4550. We'll select these three and run that. So we're able to insert those three tables. I mean those three rows. And if we go back to the API and we refresh, notice that we get those three courses. Right? We're able to retrieve them and retrieve them from the database. Right? And expose that. Everybody okay? So this gives us a starting point from the server's point of view. Right? That there's some data out there. We added it through the database. It's not fair. We would have wanted to add it from the client's point of view, but this gives us a starting point. All right, excellent. So the next couple of slides walk you through saying, all right, now that I have data on the server and I have exposed it at an API RESTful point, how can I access it now from the client? All right, so this walks you through creating a new application, creating the whiteboard application. I think we've gone through this. This also walks you through deploying it on Heroku. But let's take a look at retrieving a list of courses. I think we began this yesterday. Let's see where we are. Let's take a look at. Okay, this is another project. Let me close this. And I believe it's this one that we were looking at yesterday. All right, so let me close that. Right, exactly. So this is our index page, right? This is our entry point. We had created Bootstrap and Font Awesome, and we were about to now use this endpoint of courses and then display them on the front end through the whiteboard application. So let's see how we can access the server. So we'll do that next.